That's a plus. Good morning, everybody. It is great to be with you today, both in person and online. Our chalice lighting this morning is When I Am Among the Trees by Mary Oliver. When I am among the trees, especially the willows and the honey locust, as equally the beech, the oaks, and the pines, they give off such hints of gladness. I would almost say that they save me, and daily. I am so distant from the hope of myself, in which I have goodness and discernment, and never hurry through the world, but walk slowly and bow often. Around me, the trees stir in their leaves and call out, "Stay a while, stay a while." The light flows from their branches, and then they call, "It's simple," they say. And you too have come into the world to do this, to go easy, to be filled with light, and to shine.
Good morning and welcome here to this place at River Road Unitarian Universalist Congregation. I'm just going to take a beat before my actual welcome words and say that I see in this space young adults and youth whom I haven't seen in 2 years, in 3 years, in so long. I see folks who are here for the first time. I see families gathered together, grateful for the chance to do what we can in community while we can, even as the great world spins and changes. And I know that around computer screens and TV screens and living rooms, not just here at River Road, but at Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Congregation, at the Fairfax Unitarian Church, both of whom are joining us online this morning, I know that other families, other youth, other young adults, other people are gathering together in the spaces that we make sacred by coming together. And so welcome. Welcome whoever you are, welcome wherever you are joining us from. Welcome to this space which is in this room and so far beyond it. Welcome to a partnership, in fact, of 3 congregations who come together in worship this morning. The future must be a collective future, not an individual one. The future must be one that we build for and with each other. And so this morning, as our Potomac Partnership congregations worship together, as we preach climate in the pulpit, as we bring the reality of climate awareness home with us, as we do the work of building community, what a blessing it is to hold it all together. If it is your first time or your first time in a long time, you are welcome here. Come, let us worship together.
My blood doth rise in the roots of yon oak, her sap doth run in my veins, boundless my soul like the open sky, where the stars forever have lain, where the stars, where the stars, where the stars forever have lain. My hands hold the weavings of time without end, my sight as deep as the sea, beating my heart sounds the measures of old, that of love's eternity, that of love, that of love, that of love's eternity. I feel the tides as they answer the moon, rushing on a far distant sand. Ringing my song is the wind of my breast, and my love blows over the land. And my love, and my love, and my love blows over the land. My foot carries days of the old into new. Our dreaming shows us the way. Wondrous our faith settles deep in the earth, rising green to bring a new day. Rising green, rising green, rising green to bring a new day.
There is a space in many Unitarian Universalist services, so often called the time for all ages, which over the span of years, too often we pretended was a time for children. It is indeed a time for us all, a time to learn and be challenged and grow and reorient ourselves with new and deeper truths. And here at River Road, we call this time prophetic voices, where we bring in prophets from outside our tradition, from within our tradition, prophets in story and in sacred scripture and in song that have something important to say to us all right now. And so for our time of prophetic voices today, we give you indeed a story. The Tree in Me by Corinna Lukin, read by River Road's own poet in residence, whose whole heart is in the preservation of the things of this earth and all of us beings who dwell thereon, Heidi Mordhorst.
Good morning. This is Heidi Mordhorst, member of the RRUUC Earth Ministry Group. And I'm here to tell you that one of the most interesting things I learned as a kid was that we use the same word to talk about this part of the tree as we do to talk about this part of our bodies. This is the trunk of the tree, and this is the trunk of the kid. And if that's true, then our feet are a bit like roots, and our arms are a bit like branches, and our hands and fingers are a bit like the twigs at the ends of the branches. This poem is called The Tree in Me by Karina Lukin. The tree in me is part apple, part orange, pear, almond, plum, part yum, part shade, and part sun. The tree in me is seed and blossom, bark and stump, branch and trunk, and crown. It is bird, squirrel, worm, and bee. Bzzz. And because there is a tree in me, there is wind, and rain, and dirt, and a river with fish, and a sky too. The tree in me is strong. It bends. It has roots that go deep. Down to where other roots reach up towards their own trunk, branch, crown. And sky too. Because there is a tree and a sky and a sun in me, I can see that there is also a tree in you. The Tree in Me by Karina Lukin.
We gather in this time as sacred beings, larger than ourselves alone. We gather in this time filled with the joys that bring us laughter and the sorrow that brings us tears, the very real stuff of our very real lives. For all of those at home right now, feel free, if you're so moved, to take just a minute. In this sacred space we have created in person and online, and share what is moving on your heart this morning for those of you gathered in this room. Hold what moves your heart and pause for a moment to think on those whose typing fingers share their truths. Wherever you are, from wherever you've come, here in this time when we kindle the lights we have gathered. Each candle, each Sunday morning, shines for the joys and the sorrows that you bring, and for all the lights that we kindle in our homes and by our hearths during this season of light. Here, when the Hanukkah lights begin to shine, just 3 days after families gathered to give thanks, we acknowledge the ancient stories that we tell about hope and about survival. Hanukkah, after all, is a celebration of the Maccabees, yet one more in a long lineage of those who resisted colonial occupation, who insisted upon the imperative of their own survival in the face of massive violence all around them. And so we pair the kindling of the first of the Hanukkah lights with the hope and the history of the peoples who fight for their own survival across every nation and every time, the hope and the history of the peoples native to this very place upon which we gather here on land sacred to the Nacotchtank and the Piscataway Kanoi. May the light shine for all those who would work and worry and struggle for their own resilience, for those who maintain their culture, their dignity, and their personhood in the face of every single empire. This light shines also on the very first Sunday of Advent, when the first candle represents the prophets who foretell the coming birth of hope. May all those who proclaim a new way be welcomed in among us as the lights shine on, flickering but not extinguished. Yes, even when hope is hard to find. Since the lights have been kindled and will be kindled again, since the hope for a new day has been proclaimed and the desire for a life filled with peace has been brought into this space with us, I invite you, as you are willing and able, to take a good seat and a deep breath wherever it is you are for a time of meditation, of prayer, and of blessing. Spirit of life, source of love, we hold so much in these days. Gratitude crammed up against uncertainty, plans that shake and quiver in the face of unveiling information. We gather not knowing what the coming days or weeks will bring, but knowing still that we have the capacity to build within ourselves a resilience that carries us through. Spirit of life and source of love, remind us that though we may be the ones who move through creation with an iron fist, bringing destruction so often in our wake, we are also the ones who can be the helpers, the builders of hope, the creators of a new way. Let us in this holiday season not be overwhelmed by the immensity of it all, nor quaking under the sheer weight of our own responsibility, but welcome always to the empathy that gives us courage. May we be remade, not only by our anxieties and our fears and the constant pressures of adaptability, but by the courage that arises as each new day unfolds and we find partners on the journey who, though afraid, are not too weary to carry on the journey alongside us. Spirit of life, source of love, the season unfolds and the lights still shine. May we indeed be the helpers and the hopers through all that comes our way, starting today and onward into the days and weeks to come. Amen.
deep of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
In this season of thanks, we give thanks for you. We also give thanks for our robust and vibrant congregations. Ours is a community of generosity where we do the hard but faithful work of building the beloved community together. To learn more about River Roaders and why we give, you can check out our website at rruuc.org. There you can find information on our programs and partnerships and all the ways to connect to the mission and the vision of this community. You can also give right there on the main page by clicking the blue Give Online button. You can also text to give. The number for text to give is also on your screen and can be found on the website as well. Thank you. Thank you for your gifts of time and your talents and your treasure.
Someone once chanced to ask the great 20th century architect Bernard Maybeck how exactly it was he hoped people would preserve his work. mostly in marble and wood. His greatest works are temples to human ingenuity and creativity and design. And someone asked him, how exactly is it that you want us to make sure these artifacts of human creativity will survive? And Bernard Maybeck looked at that person who asked him that question, and he said simply, plant redwoods. Plant redwoods inside the temple and all around the temple. Plant redwoods underneath the temple so that their roots will grow up and crack the marble itself. Plant redwoods that will grow so tall that they grow straight through the ceiling that I have spent my lifetime designing. Plant redwoods, he said, and let the rain come in and remind us what deep time looks like. He invited us to bear witness to impermanence itself, without anxiety or fear or grasping, but something very close to wonder. Plant redwoods, let them teach us. We live in a culture, a dominant culture, that so often teaches us to leave our legacy and make our mark. It is the one way we seem to know how to deal with the great and terrifying truth that even the longest summer day is short in every human life, even the ones that change everything for good and for ill. Every human life is rapidly hurtling toward the mystery that lies at its end. As Gautama, the Buddha himself, famously coached us, the work of contemplating our conditioned existence in this fleeting world, a single human life, is to contemplate a tiny drop of dew, a bubble floating in a stream, a flash of lightning on a summer cloud, a flickering lamp, an illusion, a phantom, a dream. And because we human beings cannot help but be always and persistently aware of our tenuous brevity, we move around on this earth in which we live and move and have our being. We move around knowing that the journey will not take us onward forever, that the impacts we make on this world and on each other of necessity must happen quickly, often even aggressively, at a breakneck pace that so often consumes more than it conserves. This pace, this drive to matter, to mark, to leave a legacy in a brief flash of time we are given, it has complicated and deeply painful and destructive implications for the planet we live on, obviously. We do not know that the tree and the sky and the earth and the moon dwell in us, that we ourselves are an extension of that tree's branches, that our feet become their roots. We do not know that deep inside our own hearts, and so we are anxious and desirous to make an impact instead of live within the natural world and that anxious pace at which we live our brief lives. We must also admit that it has an often deadly impact on how we interact together upon this earth. So often we are reaching. We are reaching often individually. We are straining to matter. We are striving to make an impact. We are fighting to rise above both our brevity and our brethren. While the historians and the memory keepers question whether this kind of competition for personal resources and rights is in fact the default pattern for human society, while people wonder if maybe it doesn't have to be this way, the fact remains that individuals of our species repeatedly choose models of society that lean us toward competition instead of cooperation. And even now, you open any news website, you crack the newspaper, you talk to your neighbors and your friends, you do just the most minute amount of following what is happening in this world, and you can see this push toward individual freedoms and personal liberties that catches every headline far above any pull toward mutual cooperation. The right of a single soul to stand your ground and protect yourself against all others. It barrels at us through politics and personal history, often at the point of a gun, not because human beings want to destroy, but because human beings want to matter in the short time we are given. We want to matter, and the anxiety and self-protection, along with the shame that comes with that stance, is an emotion that has a way of obscuring every single other thing we might feel, every other thing that might cross the paths of our hearts, including and especially empathy. We move quickly and anxiously over land that is not ours to consume, working to impact the world and our neighbors, leaving literal scorched earth behind. We do so not because we are horrible or evil, nor because we should be mired in our own shame. We do it because we are afraid that nothing will hold us in the end if we cannot hold our history and make our impact and defend our ground and share a legacy all by ourselves. There is a kind of desperation to our need to leave our mark. And that mark itself, born of brevity, lasts long after we ourselves are gone. But there are other ways. There are stories with longer arcs, told in deeper time. There are beings who leave their mark. There are ways of being that acknowledge the brevity while making space for something so much larger than a mere bubble floating on a moving stream. There are lessons of deeper time and interconnected networks right here if we would pause our anxious spinning long enough to learn them. Did you know that what one might safely call the largest single living organism on this planet is a stand of aspens in Utah? Quaking aspens, they call them, the Pando Grove, whose vast reach covers 108 acres of land and is estimated to weigh 6,000 tons. From above or among, the Pando Grove looks like a whole bunch of individual trees growing together on this patch of land, but when you go within, when you study it on a cellular level, you find out that it is in fact not many things but one thing: a clonal colony genetically identical of a single male aspen tree with a massive interwoven root system that is in fact several thousand years old. It is one plant extended over 108 acres. It is sending out shoots of itself over and over and over again toward a deeper time than any single person could imagine. We, so obsessed with our individuality, look at it as 1,000 trees, but its own soul is so interwoven that nothing happens alone. For thousands of years, the Pando Grove has stood there silently replicating itself, quaking in breezes that never cease to blow, a trembling giant that lives in time out of time. Except time is moving quickly now. Just in the last 30 years, as grazing livestock joined a combination of drought and development, the Pando has not been able to create enough young stems to replace the older ones as they fall away. And so for the first time in over 2,000 years, the grove is shrinking. In real time, in human time, it is shrinking. As we spin our anxious way through it, it is shrinking, leaving our livestock and the mark of our existence behind. And even that single tree on 108 acres, even that is not the full extent of the mystery and the majesty that nature has to teach us about our interconnection to a deeper time than our individual lives. The Pando Grove, after all, is just one species. It's all one quaking aspen standing there shining in the sun together, one mighty individual connected because it is fundamentally one thing. But the forest itself, it is, by definition, many things. Many beings, many forces working through natural selection for the survival of the fittest and all that. But the memory keepers know otherwise. That the forest is not merely one vast contest. As Robin Wall Kimmerer wrote in Braiding Sweetgrass, a beautiful book that no doubt you have heard your preachers quote from time to time, there are wonders of connection that the world is witnessing every day. And on the cutting edge of science, we find the amazing reality that the forest itself, for all its mind-boggling diversity and complexity, it is also something closer to an interconnected whole. Beneath the earth, bridges of fungi connect individual trees into networks which literally serve to redistribute the wealth of sustenance from one tree to another. As Kimmerer says, it is a kind of Robin Hood. The trees take from the rich and give to the poor so that all the trees arrive at the same carbon surplus at the same time. They weave a web of reciprocity, of giving and in taking. In this way, the trees all act as one thing because the fungi beneath their roots have connected them. Through unity, they find survival. All flourishing is mutual. Soil, fungus, tree, squirrel, boy, all are beneficiaries of a great reciprocity. The events occurring in the spanning years of any given tree are recorded forever in that tree's internal structure, aren't they? The oak never loses the mark from the droughts of the Dust Bowl. The poplar always bears the scar of the pruning hook. As writer David Quammen has put it, the shape of any given tree represents a connection between nature and experience. We know that each tree shows the interactions between itself and its companions, the space where other trees gave up their carbon so that the most threatened ones could survive, the ring of growth where the old oak gave up its energy to the adolescent cedar that was more at risk. So it is with us. The shape, the scope, the particular arrangement of our being, it shows the evidence of all the interactions that we have been endowed with from our first moments. In the rings of our souls, we bear the mark of our first breath. We bear the mark of what we have seen and known, what has been extracted from us. We bear the marks of fear and anxiety and trauma. We bear the marks of those who caught us when we fell, who gave of themselves to keep us moving and breathing when we could not tend to ourselves alone. All of it is etched into our being, and still so often we are anxious and ashamed, worried and weary, fighting to leave our own mark so thoroughly that we forget how very much we are marked by each other. That we forget what it is to attend to the whole, to feel empathy on a scale that surpasses our own personal individual experience, even though absolutely everything, including our very survival on this earth, depends upon it. Depends on our ability to feel something larger than our own anxious spinning. The cultivated willingness to ground our choices in deeper time than our own lives, even as the clock of the climate crisis barrels ahead at a pace that leaves us breathless and afraid. To make the choices that need to be made, not just out of fear, but out of genuine collective empathy for the whole of which we are but a tiny part. Let us ask right now, if fear has not caused us to change the course of the climate crisis, if shame is an emotion which stultifies and goes nowhere, might we instead try empathy, an emotion that settles in our souls and perhaps turns into something closer to resilience? The whole network is at risk, and the only thing that can save it is empathy. The young climate activist James Forrester, he says the only thing that can save it is empathy for ourselves, empathy for each other, empathy for those who will live long after we're gone, empathy for climate refugees streaming across the borders we have hand-drawn for ourselves and our empires. Perhaps most importantly, empathy for ourselves, for the peace of our own individual hearts that doesn't feel fed and held and healed by the network of relationships around us, and so goes out consuming endlessly the networks of which we are a part. Jerome Foster, this teenager, this climate activist who has everything to lose before his 20th birthday, he looks at the trees in the land and the sky. He looks at how it all dwells within him, and he tells us that if we can just fill ourselves with empathy instead of anxious grasping, if we can just feel our way toward care on a scale of time greater than our own short lives, if we can live in deeper time than our failures and achievements today, then truly we might find our way to resilience instead of resignation. We can reach out as a network to tend each other's anxious fears and limited scope. We can create a framework that holds each other in the world. We can do it without leaving anyone behind. The trees reach out for each other. The sustenance of life itself moves from root to root. All things are held in a network that does not let us go, does not let us down, and does not let us off the hook. We are each other's, and we belong to the span of history even as we struggle to make ourselves known in these days. Can we allow ourselves to be held by the ancient trees that grow above our little graves? Can we feel with and for each other as we struggle to make a difference, opening our own hearts to mutual care? Can we meet this moment not with anger, not with fear, not with self-loathing, but with fundamental empathy that turns into resilience, a resilience that stretches itself out into survival? As we move forward, nearing the dawn of a new year, may empathy take root where once there was mostly fear. May mutual care percolate through the root systems we build for each other. May we learn from those beings all around us who hold time less anxiously than we, and make our way forward together.
Oh, I'm waking up to find my world between the dying and being reborn. I see what is and I see what could be. Can't close my eyes again and go back to sleep. Fill my days with blessed unrest and my nights with dreams of justice. Make me a vessel for the turning of the tide. How can I change our course? Just a lonely voice. Wish I could lose myself in all the noise. But if we all would rise, a generation proud with a mighty song, we could turn this world around. So fill my days with blessed unrest and my nights with dreams of justice. Make me a vessel for the turning of the tide. Fill my days with blessed unrest and my nights with dreams of justice. Make me a vessel for the turning of the tide. Ancestors all behind, and before me every child, I bring the power of a long unbroken line. So when our time is through, I want to know, did what we came to do for the future ones, so in our darkest days, may we all be strong and give our lives so life may go on. Fill my days with blessed unrest and my nights with dreams of justice. Make me a vessel. Fill my days with blessed unrest and my nights with dreams of justice. Make me a vessel for the turning of the tide. Fill my days with blessed unrest and my nights with dreams of justice. Make me a vessel for the turning of the tide. Fill my days with blessed unrest and my nights with dreams of justice. Make me a vessel for the turning of the tide.
So everything that we do together is an expression of how we want to be together. The kind of network that we want to create, not just here in this place, but of course across the span of our Potomac Partnership congregations and around the world and in our communities. You can find out so much more about what's happening in this congregation at Cedar Lane and at Fairfax. Check the newsletter, and let me just have, like, Nancy says it straight moment. There is so much changing about COVID realities right now. Every single one of our congregations is putting out our information about what's happening for the holidays and our plans, just as all of you are making your plans for the holidays, even as the world shifts subtly and perhaps dramatically beneath our feet. Please check the newsletter, read your email, and offer us forbearance as we and everyone else figures out how to be safely and lovingly connected in the days and the weeks to come. You can also connect with our Earth Ministry here at River Road if you yourself are inspired to know how to be a part of the turning of the tide, grounded in the empathy of your own heart. You can find out about the Earth Ministry and Green Sanctuary efforts at both Cedar Lane and Fairfax as well. And every single time we come together is an opportunity to be transformed by empathy for one another into more empathetic creatures dwelling upon this earth. When we come together in worship, we know it does not happen in a vacuum. It happens because gracious and hardworking people make it so. We got Reverend Karin, like 2 weeks out of surgery, making her way up to the pulpit this morning. Yes. Who would not be stalled from being here in worship today and brought her Hot Wheels to prove it. We've got our amazing musicians, of course, Brock Holmes, Bailey Whiteman, bringing her whole heart to worship, Shuai Wang, always, we are grateful, and the tech crew. Can we just praise the tech crews at every congregation? Today, Marcia and Dave Leonard with us, knowing that other tech crews at other congregations have a day off because of their graciousness. We thank Heidi Mordhorst and our Earth Ministry here at River Road for all their work in helping to prepare this service and our prophetic voices. And always, always, we are grateful for the chance to be together. And so, as we take this light we have kindled in this place forward into the waiting world, may each of you go forward from this place to be who you already are. You are the beloved and precious children of everything that is sacred in this world and beyond it. And the goodness and mercy, the power and possibility, the joy and the justice of the Spirit are at loose in you and through you in the world. So go then to be who you already are. And may you be abundantly blessed. Amen.